And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Top Dog Talk podcast. Back here again, host Harrison Reno. I'm Harrison Reno. That's co-host Dan Kiley. Dan, how's it going with you on this Tuesday evening?
Everything is going extremely well for me. It's been a pretty fun-filled weekend over here. My son just turned 15 years old. I can't believe that. Holy crap. And started his high school basketball career this week. So it's just it's been a good week over here at the family.
Heck yes. And it's also been a really good week for Georgia football and specifically Georgia football fans. Dan put it out on Twitter today. Every Georgia fan loves talking some recruiting. That's what we're going to do today. But first, we're going to pivot. We had to make some audibles on the fly. Dan, you helped pick this out this week. I texted you this morning. I was like, hey, what position do you want to talk about for our fall camp position preview? You chose running backs, and you gave a pretty interesting take about that. So, Dan, I want to kick it over to you. What makes you so excited about the running backs this year?
So for me, the running back position of Georgia is always loaded, and we kind of always know that, and we're really, really spoiled, to be completely honest, with the amount of talented backs that we've had coming in. But this particular group has got me really intrigued because, with Gurley, the minute he stepped foot on campus, and hindsight being 2020, what it is like Keith Marshall was the higher recruited running back out of that group. Okay. And everybody had high expectations on Marshall, maybe not so much Gurley, but I was at that game against Buffalo the very first time Todd Gurley ever touched a football. It was on a kickoff, and he took it back to the house. And that guy was electric. I have never had that goosebump feeling about a running back like I did with Gurley. He was unfreaking believable. Well, transition to, Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb was just special. Everybody loved Nick Chubb. He, the type of guy who doesn't say a word, right? And he's just all about business, and he doesn't care about anything other than business. And you got to love that about him. And then you had Sony in that group, and Sony was a little bit more of the flash or whatever. But then you had Zeus come in, and he was all world, the highest rated running back in the history of high school football. And then, obviously, injuries derailed that whole thing. He was very, very productive for Georgia, more productive than most people are willing to give him credit for. And then we had, oh my gosh, James Cook, who, kind of underutilized a lot of the time that he was here. And we finally got to see him kind of flash a little bit, much in the same way for me that Sony flashed the last year that he was at Georgia's, kind of with James Cook. But with the group that we have now, think about how talented they are. Okay, they're all extremely talented. But what do we know about them? Right? If you think about it from that perspective, is we kind of know what Kendall is, but Kendall's never really stayed healthy, and he's never been asked to carry the load. Kenny McIntosh, when he gets his opportunities, looks amazing, but he's never had to carry the load. I love Dejon Edwards. I think that kid could be a starting running back at almost every other 5 school, maybe not Alabama or something like that, because they're kind of as loaded as we are. And then you have other guys on there listen, I don't even know if he's still on the roster, but Savion Clark, I covered him in high school up at oh gosh, I just blanked at what school he went to. It wasn't White County. It was Dawsonville. No, I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But Savion Clark was amazing in high school, and that guy's barely getting carries. But Bronson Robinson coming in, that kid looks like a freight train. I am jacked about that dude. I mean, he looks amazing. So you have all of these guys. Kendall, everybody's so excited about Kendall. And then you have Kenny. Everybody's so excited about Kenny. But we honestly don't know that much about them having to carry the load. So I'm just so excited to see this thing play out because they are all so talented. And we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, could somebody be a surprise candidate for the Heisman Trophy? It wouldn't shock me if any one of those three running backs that I mentioned could be a Heisman Trophy candidate, because if Georgia wants to go back to running the football the way that they have in the past, and checking down the tight ends all day long, there's a very real possibility that one of those running backs could end up. And if I were to tell you Kenny, I don't know that anybody could argue that Kenny could be the guy, right? Nobody can argue that Kendall can't be the guy. And you can't argue that Dejon Edwards couldn't be the guy. And God knows what's going to happen when Bronson Robinson decides he wants to start carrying the football. Like I said, I'm so excited because there's not really a wrong answer in my opinion, and they're all so talented, but yet it's kind of like Christmas morning where you think you know what you're going to get, but until you open that present, you don't really know. So you go running downstairs, you open up that present, and then you're super, super excited. So that's how I'm looking at this Georgia running back room. It's like we got a bunch of presents under the tree. I want to open them some guns up.
And I just want to, going off of what you said, just, I mean, how loaded Georgia's running back room, recruiting wise, Del McGee's done a, fantastic job. And I put a tweet out last night talking about how Georgia has, two ace recruiters in Todd Hartley and Glenn Schumann. And I had multiple people, including you, Dan, talk about, there's more than just two. And that's all me. But I mean, to me, when I put out that tweet, I was talking about, you go back and you look at just what all the resume of Glenn Schumann and Todd Hartley, they've hit on almost every single guy that they've ever wanted. Whether it's Eric Gilbert, who, yes, went to LSU before he went to Georgia, ended up, Todd Hartley left the door open for him to come back if there was ever the opportunity, and he swooped in and got him. So, that's not a slight to Del McGee or Will Muschamp. Although I wasn't ready to put Will Muschamp in that tier of calling him an ace recruiter on Georgia's staff just because he's only been here for a year. When you compare him to the resumes of Todd Hartley and Glenn Schumann at Georgia, he in another year or two, you never know what Will Muschamp's going to bring to Georgia. So, but talk about the running backs. Jonathan Williams, I know you're in here. You commented earlier in the show. You put out a really good tweet, I think it was last week, talking about the comparisons between Kenny McIntosh and James Cook, heading into their junior seasons. If you do have that tweet in front of you, please put it in the comments because it was actually an interesting comparison. They had very similar numbers heading into their junior seasons. And, I think Kenny McIntosh is probably going to be the one that, like Sony Michel, gets a lot of the attention, a lot of the flash and the pizzazz of being a really successful running back because, I mean, McIntosh is that Swiss Army knife, Dan, like, James Cook was, where you can motion him out of the backfield. You can make him a receiver. He can do all the things that you want in a current, running back in the NFL and in college. So, Jonathan, like I said, if you have that tweet in front of you, please put it down in the comments because I thought it was a very interesting comparison between the two. And Dan, speaking of Georgia's running backs, I mean, it's all about, the two-headed monster. And here we go right here, real quick, before we finish up that point. Looking at a comparison here, James Cook Jr., year 45 attempts, 303 yards, rushing yards, 225 receiving yards, 5 total touchdowns. And look how similar it is to Kenny McIntosh this past season. 58 attempts, 328 rushing yards, 242 receiving yards with 5 total touchdowns. I would take, I think everyone in the comment section, Dan included, would take a James Cook type jump from Kenny McIntosh this year.
Well, I mean, if you look at those numbers that he put up, Kenny's were better for his junior year, but I think Kenny is more of a complete back. The first couple times I saw Kenny run the football, I was really excited about him. Like, to me, and I know this is probably blasphemy to say this, but he's like the first couple times I saw him run the ball, he had some real Willis McGahee vibes to him. Like when Willis McGahee was at Miami before he got obliterated on television and his knee like almost completely got severed apart. Like I think Kenny McIntosh is the real deal. I really do. And like I love Kendall, but part of me wonders, and do we love Kendall as much as we love Kendall because we love his dad that much? You know what I'm saying? Like it's a hard one for me because when you start to feel like you kind of know somebody, you kind of get drawn more to them, and it's harder to be more critical. Like Kendall hasn't had a game where he's dominated and just absolutely torched people. That's never happened for him yet. Now, granted, he's never been necessarily asked to do that, but when Nick Chubb was a freshman, he almost went for 1,000 yards. When Todd Gurley was a freshman, he went for 1,000 yards. When the first year ever that Noshawn Marino played, he went for almost 1,000 yards. So, I mean, we saw Nick Chubb his freshman year ripping off 90-yard runs where he was just running through people and then past people. I know we have some guys in here that love to give us stats. I wish somebody send us what is the longest touchdown run that Kendall's had. I mean, again, like I'm not. Please don't take this as I'm bagging on Kendall. I think he's got the ability to be amazing, but I wonder sometimes all the hype that he's getting and the attention that he's getting, where everybody is so confident that he's so much better than Kenny McIntosh and so much better than Dejan and everybody else. Is it because we just love him and we love his dad and we love everything about him and we're kind of overlooking the productivity? Or, I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? Because it's a conflict of interest for me where I like him so much that I don't know how to evaluate him.
I understand exactly where you're coming from, because I mean, the big question with not only Kendall but with Kenny as well. We got to see these guys if they have durability. That's been the biggest question for these guys coming into this full season, where they are the premier backs. And then you have Dejan Edwards, Branson Robinson, even Andrew Paul. We're gonna get to later. The second freshman back, who I think probably is going to be very underrated, and could receive some of the snaps that Dejan Edwards was getting as a freshman, where he's coming in and just battering these teams on the ground late in the fourth quarter. So, but I think, can they stay healthy? That's the biggest question. Georgia hasn't had a 1,000-yard running back since, I think it was 2019 with DeAndre Swift. And that's crazy. And also, looking at 2020, I think you kind of rule it out. There's asterisk beside that because they only played 10 games. And I think Zamir White had almost 800 yards, or maybe almost 900. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I mean, it was pretty dang close. If he had a whole 12-game season, 12-game regular season, I think it would have easily passed over 1,000 yards. And then last year, you look at stats last year, Dan, those two were as balanced as it gets stat-wise. I mean, James Cook had 728 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns on 113 carries. Then you look at Zamir White, 856 yards on 11 touchdowns, with 11 touchdowns and 160 carries. I mean, what's it called? Stats-wise, those are pretty too balanced. And, Georgia didn't get a lot of credit for how good, Georgia's running backs were last year, because you didn't have that 1,000-yard rusher. You didn't have that home run hitter in Bijan Robinson out of the backfield who could take, what looks like it's going to be a loss of 2 and turn it into a 70-yard touchdown. And I don't know if Georgia has that. I haven't seen that, on paper. I don't know if Georgia's had that this year. Has that this year currently on paper on their roster. Maybe Kenny McIntosh will be the home run hitter for Georgia. Talking about those explosive play guys, like James Cook had a couple explosive plays last year, but it was, I mean, right off the top of my head, Dan, I remember that 60-yard run, a 70-yard run in the national championship game that basically just flipped that game around.
Yeah, I mean, that is such an underrated play in that game. In the hindsight or in the euphoria of the moment, people kind of forget about that. And I am laughing my ass off right now. These comments, I look like T.I. his first day of basic. What is that? So, all right, I will address this clean shaven look for you right now. So, I was trying to be funny, and I grew a mustache, and I shaved everything except for the mustache. And I came downstairs and said, "Hey, look, I'm Rooster." And my wife said, "If you don't shave that off right now, me and the kids are packing our shit and leaving because you look like a pedophile with a mustache." So here we are. I look like I'm 12.
I love how it took 14 minutes into the show for anyone to mention it, and honestly, I didn't even realize. I mean, this is just normal Dan Kiley look ever since I've known you. So I didn't even realize that you shaved the mustache.
Well, I don't know. I don't like being clean shaven, but
and hold up real quick, Dan, before you make your point, let's go ahead and give a shameless plug for the YouTube channel. Guys, if you're listening to us on podcast, this is what you're missing. You're missing the live interaction with the comment section. We try to include the comment section as much as possible. Hopefully that's like one of the top reasons why you see guys like Rudes, the DGD podcast, Robert Renner, shout out to them, Jonathan Williams, Jeremiah Sauter from the Classic City podcast. Go check out both of those podcasts coming back week to week. Come join us on YouTube. We're live every Tuesday at 7:30. On podcast, you don't get us till Wednesday morning. So if you come join us Tuesday night, have nothing to do, or hey, maybe you're working, you can still listen to us on YouTube and get that live interaction with Dan and myself. So Dan, sorry to interrupt you right there with a little plug right there for the YouTube channel.
You're right. I did want to live my Top Gun life, but my wife was not having it. Sorry, Robert. Yeah, I'm 100% Goose. I could be Goose. Yeah, I'll be your wingman, Rudes. Anyway, I don't even know what my point was. I don't even remember what we were talking about because I got distracted by everybody making fun of my 5-year-old face. And I do look like a child. I get it. I get it. Oh yes. So in the euphoria of winning the national championship game, we honestly completely forgot about that run by James Cook, and he saved us. I mean, that was amazing. And James Cook came up clutch, and it just seems like, as far going back to the thing I was saying about Kendall a couple of minutes ago, is that we haven't seen it, whatever. But Georgia always seems to get the very best out of a guy, but right before he leaves. So to say that we're not going to get to see the best out of Kendall, I don't believe that for a second, because Georgia's going to find a way to get the very best out of him. Look at Sony. I mean, Sony did a great job of staying on and just kind of biding his time, filling in for Chubb when he was hurt, and trying to be the best damn dog he could possibly be. But then his senior year, if you look at like the second half of the last year that they were both there, Chubb kind of fell off a little bit, and then Michel is the one who just exploded on the scene. Now, obviously in the NFL, Sony's basically out of the league already, and Nick Chubb is arguably the top 2 or 3 backs in the entire NFL. So, it's hard to tell what happens at the next level, but Sony was the better running back the second half of the very last year that the both of them were there. So, again, I honestly, Harrison, I don't feel like there's a wrong answer at all with any one of those backs. And to be completely honest, I know whenever we put pads on, we start practicing, like everybody kind of grimaces, like when they open up their Twitter app, they're like, please God, don't let there be an injury. And I mean, it's just like Georgia's always snake bit. We always talk about star players at Georgia just can't seem to stay healthy or stay on the field for whatever reason. But like, if there was going to be an injury somewhere, it's like, let it be in the running back room, please, because we have enough to survive. But like, we can't afford to lose 2 or 3 wide receivers. We can't afford to lose 2 or 3 tight ends. We can't afford to lose 2 tackles. We can't afford.
Maybe tight end. Maybe tight end.
Yeah.
Okay. Out of all of them, maybe tight end.
All right. Well, you get what I'm saying. Like, but we're planning on running 41 personnel, so like we need, we need all 4 of our tight ends healthy. But you get what I'm saying. So I wanted to cover the running backs because I'm extremely excited. I honestly, again, don't think there's a wrong answer, and these guys are beasts.
And they added another beast. They added potentially 2 beasts to that already stacked running room. You get Andrew Paul, a 3-star out of Dallas, Texas, a really underrated back. But what stands out to me, when you kind of do a deep dive into, who he is and kind of learn about him as a prospect, if you go to 247 Sports, you can find out he ran at 11.73 in his 100-meter during his sophomore year. We're talking about a speedster here, adding a little bit more speed to the room at running back, to go along with what looks to be, a power back, a really strong, probably some of the best, one of the best physiques I've seen coming out of high school in a long time. From my limited time trying to keep up with the ins and outs of the recruiting industry and all that, I don't know if I've seen a prospect as built physically as Branson Robinson. He's 5'10", 220 pounds. And dude looks like he can go, lift with Nick Chubb and have no problem. Kind of like CJ Washington, who is a relative of former Georgia running back Nick Chubb. Branson Robinson's going to fit right in at home with those 3 guys if they hang out at all during his time in Athens. So Dan, let's get in. I didn't put this on the show notes, but if you had to predict, a prediction, does Georgia have a 1,000-yard rusher this year, or maybe do we have to wait a little bit longer?
So let me take a different approach to answer that. Does Georgia have a back on its roster capable of rushing for 1,000 yards? 100% yes. They have 3 or 4 backs more than likely capable of rushing for 1,000 yards if we ask them to do that. However, what has really worked for Georgia so far is not allowing any one of these guys to take the massive load of carries to where they're going to be ruined for the future. Okay. So if you look at it from that perspective, when you had Sony and Nick Chubb, okay, there was 2 backs that did all the carries and they split them up even, and we barely threw the ball. We did not throw the ball that much. Okay. So they both went for 1,000 yards. And it's actually not extremely difficult to do that considering that you're playing 15 games, right? So you don't even have to go for 100 yards a game. You go for like 65, 70 yards a game, you're going to hit that 1,000-yard marker. Now, I think if they went a two-person, a tandem in the backfield with Kenny and Kendall, K squared, right? I think both of them could probably get close to 1,000, but I really feel like there's going to be 4 that get carries. Because there's no way Branson's coming here and going to just sit there on the sidelines. No way in hell. They didn't do it with Nick Chubb. They didn't do it with Kendall, to be completely honest. We had backs here already, but they gave him carries as a freshman. So Robinson's getting carries. He's getting carries.
And even Kevin McIntosh as a freshman, Kenny McIntosh with DeAndre Swift and Brian Herring in that room.
So, my point is that I think there are too many mouths to feed. And then couple that with Monken is allowing Georgia to throw the ball more now than they ever have, except for when Zaire was the quarterback. Because I don't
different
know.
Different time.
So I'm not going to say no, but I think it's going to be very difficult to have a 1,000-yard receiver because too many mouths to feed, and I think we're going to throw the ball a good bit. So I don't know, but it wouldn't be that difficult. So I'm not 100% sure. Rudes is right, and that's what I said. Is our system doesn't ask a player to do that. It's the only way it's going to happen is if every time Kendall touches the ball, he goes 60 yards, right? If he does that twice a game, it's 120 yards a game. So it could happen pretty quickly if you guys got guys just breaking long runs. But I don't know. What say you? What do you think?
I don't see a 1,000-yard rusher this year. Not because, like you said, Georgia has the talent. I just don't. That's not what the system's built for, and that's what you've already iterated. And like Rude says here, if this was 10 years ago with a single workhorse running back, then yes. And I think even with a two-headed monster like Georgia has now, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, I think both of them could have potentially been 1,000-yard rushers. Maybe not both of them, but at least one of them, like Rude says, could be a 1,000-yard rusher. And in Georgia's system, I don't think the goal is going to be for 1,000 rushing yards. I think the goal for both of those guys will be, to try and get 1,000 total yards from scrimmage. I think it's probably going to be very doable for Kenny McIntosh because we've seen he's a known quality as a receiver out of the backfield. You go back and you watch him absolutely just kind of take over in the final minutes of that Peach Bowl game against Cincinnati. He was instrumental in getting Georgia down the field quickly to set up that Jack Podlesny field goal. We've seen him take over games. That was, if y'all don't remember, James Cook was not there. James Cook was out because that was days after the passing of his father. So someone had to step up, and they called on Kenny McIntosh to step up, and he did, what they asked. Kendall Milton also featured in that game. I think he had an explosive, 10-yard reception where I think he may have broke a tackle or two. That kind of is in my mind when I think about that game. But, Georgia has talent in their roster, but I think 1,000 total yards for one of these guys is doable. It's much more doable than what Georgia's doing. When you got 4 tight ends, 4 out of the 4 are, 4-star or above coming out of high school prospects. It's going to be hard to have a 1,000-yard rusher on your roster without absolutely smoking everybody.
Rudes has 1,000 yards combined, run and pass. And I think that's where, yes, I think that's where you're going to see it. And I think for me, that person's Kenny McIntosh. I think he's going to be more involved in the passing game. I think that's just my opinion. And again, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I've read this thing wrong the entire time, but I think, who do you think is going to have the most carries? That's my question. In your opinion, who gets the most carries?
I would assume Kendall, because the roles I see this going, I think McIntosh is your third down back. Far and away, he's your third down back. You're going to get him on the field when you need to pick up first down. But I see Kendall playing first and second, with also Kendall getting the short yardage situations like Zeus did, a year ago and the last 2 years. You need short yardage, 2nd and 3, 2nd and 2, 3rd and 1 on the goal line. I think you're going to Milton, but not to say that McIntosh doesn't play a factor in first and second down. I hope he does, because you don't want, kind of like 2 years ago where if Zeus is on the field, it's going to be a run, or most likely to be a run. And then when Cook's on the field, it might be a run, might be a pass.
Balance is key. Balance is key. But anyway, we've talked this Georgia running back position into the ground. Well, not necessarily, because I could talk Georgia running backs all day long. It just could. Just could. But so we're going to transition to the next segments. It's what is Dan angry about this week? But I don't know that this is an angry segment. This is kind of maybe it is an angry segment. I'm not sure. But it's about this is a seasonal topic, and it comes up every single time this part of the year where all these high school kids are out of school and it's camp season, okay? And all these kids are going to all these football camps because they think they're going to get into college off of these camps, and they're like, "Oh, I ran a 4.25 at this camp or whatever." And Brookes has talked about this also, and I'm not going to steal his thunder. Maybe we'll let him kind of chime in on it when he joins us here in a few minutes. But my biggest frustration and what I'm angry about is some of these camps are not real camps. They're just money grabs. It's like, we're going to give you these times and all this stuff, and they're not legitimate. It's just they're out there to get money. And a lot of these kids, God bless them, they want to go out and put on a performance for anybody just to up their chances to go to school. And I get it. I 100% get it. But you have to do, if you're a parent or the kid even, I mean, a lot of these kids are taking over their own recruitment on their own, and they're handling everything on their own. And, like, I know at Mill Creek, and the reason I speak about Mill Creek is because that's where I'm most intimately involved, is that they have recruiting coordinators and they have coaches dedicated to that stuff. So, if you wanted to go to a camp, you can go to them and say, "Hey, this is a camp that I'm looking at going to," and they can tell you, like, this is a really good camp to go to, or this is a camp you should stay away from. Or, some of the news that some of these kids need to hear is you are not ready for that camp yet. And it's a conversation that I have with my son all the time is, like, he has to start going to some of these camps for the visibility. But on the other end of that is, are you ready for that level of competition? Because the hardest thing to erase is a first impression. So if you go, like, I hear all these stories like, "Oh, so-and-so kid went to Nick Saban's camp when he was 8 years old or 9 years old, and he'd been going every single year, and he was terrible. And when he finally went back his junior year, he was amazing. And Coach Saban was like, 'Oh my gosh, you're so amazing. I'm going to give you a scholarship.'" Okay, that's once in a blue moon. In my son's specific situation, he's a quarterback, right? So let's just say that he goes to one of these quarterback camps, like the Elite 11 Academy camp or whatever. That's not the one you're invited to, the one you pay to go to. Say he goes there and throws like shit, and he can't hit anybody. He's overthrowing people, underthrowing people. His footwork is terrible. It's like, how is that beneficial for anybody? First of all, every single person there is like, "Wow, this kid is absolutely terrible. I don't want anything to do with him." And then two, it's going to ruin his confidence. So there are questions that you need to ask. Is it a legitimate camp? Are they truly connected to the NCAA programs that I'm interested in? Do they send their information to the schools? Is the information that they gather legitimate? So those are questions you have to ask on that end. And then the most important question is this a camp that I'm ready for? And I understand that these camps have to make money and they charge money and all that stuff, but I get frustrated because I see a lot of kids who are trying to do the right thing, and I see adults taking advantage of them. And that's never going to stop. It's always going to be there. And you would like to say it's the parents' responsibility to help these kids out. But to be completely honest, a lot of the parents innocently don't know anything. They don't know any better. And they believe, they believe in what people tell them, and they're a little bit naive. But, I see that we have Brookes in the wings. I don't know if you can bring him on, but this is a great segment to include Brookes on, because I know that Brookes has talked about this pretty passionately in the past. And, I'm not going to name drop or whatever, and you can feel free to do whatever you want, Brookes. But Some of these camps have the best interest of the kids in mind, and some of them just have their pockets in mind. So with that being said, that's my take on it. Brooks, roll, baby.
How we doing, gentlemen? Sorry for being late. First
No
of all,
worries. No worries.
No, man, I think you bring up a bunch of great points. And here's what I tell parents all the time. The first thing you said was be ready to go when you go to these places, because impressions are very, very important. So all you guys, all you parents out there that are paying a buku amount of money for your trainer, have them train your child on how to run a 40, how to run a 5-10-5, how to shake a coach's hand. Those things you should be taking care of. But just like general checklist things about how to perform at these types of events and these types of camps, first of all. But the number one thing I tell parents is that, like, camp, promotional camps are all great, but the most important thing is go to college camps. Like, these colleges are opening up their doors to their campuses and their coaches all June, the entire month, Monday through Friday. You can pull up to one of these coaches, one of these camps, and you can get run from 7th grade until you are a junior in high school. Going into your senior year, you have an opportunity to go get looked at. And if be very, very honest about where you are in your development, where your child is in their development, and pick the schools that are reasonable, right? Prime example, I was a 6 foot, 305-pound center. My butt had no business camping at the University of Georgia. So guess what? We didn't camp at Georgia. The highest we went was Ole Miss, and that was it. Okay, so be very, very realistic about where you go, but primarily put emphasis on schools. Okay, Kirby Smart's camp for a day I think costs $75. There are cash grabs out here in Metro Atlanta that are racking up $100 a person. Okay, so what you think going on? All right, like, and they ain't giving you water. Okay, they ain't paying the staff around them. All right, they didn't bring anybody out there to come look at your kids, or they're just there. All right, but if you are going to camps, here's how you know if they're worth your time. Are they NCAA certified? That's all you got to ask. Okay, that's all you have to ask. Do you have an ability to take your information, your data collection, your heights, your weights, your speeds, your film, what you are filming at your camps? Do you have the ability to turn it around and give it to college programs? Because if not, I probably shouldn't spend my time at your place. Okay, one here in Atlanta that everybody knows about is the MVP camps. The Rivals camps are NCAA certified. Okay, if they're not turning around and giving the data to colleges, or if they don't have the ability to call coaches and get your name out, you probably don't need to be investing your time there. Now, that being said, if you just want to go get some run because you need to get some run and some competition, then yeah, go pay $50 and work out at some Joe Schmo place. You know who is notorious for that? Logan Johnston. Okay, he is a walk-on now at the University of Georgia, and the only reason he did so was because he basically took a backyard approach to every camp. Yeah, I'll get run wherever. If there is a downtime, if I have nothing to do, I'm going to go get some run wherever. You can have that approach, but prioritize them and place them in the right spots, like colleges. Go to schools. Like I said, if Kirby Smart's charging $75, Joe Schmo down the block don't need to be charging $105. I mean, that's just goofy. Okay, it just kind of tells you where everything is.
But he brings up a lot of good points, and kind of like what I was talking about with my son, right? So, like, I have the opportunity to watch my son work out with guys that are better than him. Like, I take Cannon to Brookes, and we go to the Brookes, and he's got some of these kids that are rising juniors, rising seniors, whatever the case may be. And my son is way younger, way underdeveloped compared to these guys. And he gets frustrated because he can't throw the ball 65 yards like some of these other kids can. He can't throw the ball through a brick wall like some of these other kids can. But he is not matured like they are. He doesn't look like them. He doesn't have the body that they have. So if you have a kid like that, and I'm not going to name names, Brooks, if you want to, you can. But if you have a kid like that who, he can go to Georgia, right? Or he can go to one of these, Elite 11 camps or something like that. But like, it would make no sense for me to take my son to that because he's not there yet. He's not ready for that kind of stuff. So again, to my point before Brooks even got on is you have to be very realistic about what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, because there are people that will gladly take your money, but that's not why you should be going. You should be going to get value.
I think the most important thing is go to one. Like when you're very young, I would start at like 13 or 14, honestly. Like going into that 7th or 8th grade area, I would try a camp out just so we know how to do it. But every other waking moment where, me and Carter, if he's playing football, if he's interested in being great at football, if your child is interested in being great at football, During the summer, I would spend a whole hell of a lot of time with, specialized individuals who train your child. Okay, if your child is an offensive lineman, you probably need to be working with somebody that technically cleans them up all summer, because in middle school and in early 9th grade, your local high school coach doesn't have time for it. Because to be honest with you, he's probably a firefighter with the local department, or he's probably coaching social studies, or he's probably doing whatever normal high school coaches are doing, and they don't have time to specialize during the summer with your child. So work out, make sure you're eating healthy, do the common shit that most people don't do. Okay, do the Herschel Walker stuff. It does work until you're about 13 or 14. And then you need to go find out where you are, and you need to compete. You need to learn how to compete and how to win, most importantly, when you go to these places. There's very few individuals that I can remember that I've covered since 8th, 9th grade, like A.J. Harris, prime example, right? Just committed to the University of Georgia. Him and Pierce Sperlin caught Kirby Smart's eye when they were in 8th grade. Those stories are rare as hell. They're so rare. Okay, the more common story is Zacoby White, like today. I saw Zacoby White in April, knew he was going to do this. I have text message proofs to the University of Georgia saying, hey, Zacoby White, going to be a guy. Okay, watch this. They just offered him today because he showed up to their camp after all of the hubbub, right? After all of people like me, idiots like me, seeing him at all these other camps, and he showed up to their camp and he left with an offer. It still works like the old school method at a lot of these really, really big programs. Now, you can go to some camp, run a 4.48, and Coastal might offer you if you live in Metro South Carolina. They just found a gym. Those things happen, but God gave you D1 abilities. You ran 4.48. That ain't have nothing to do with that camp, dog.
Nothing. And we can't there's some kids in my son's class like Juju. Like Juju is so unfreaking believable, but he's 1 in a million. There's not a Juju in every class that pops that hard in 7th and 8th grade. And then you got a kid like Tyler Atkinson, who Brooks, you've seen this kid. He's unbelievable. But humans aren't built like that.
I saw Tyler Atkinson when he was in 6th grade, and I was like, so this kid's like a junior, right? And yeah. Marcus Howard was like, nah, he's 12. And I said, huh? Yeah. What? Hey, bro, they got that kid playing inside linebacker right now at Grayson.
So
Think about that. And he's a freak. But I know we're not here to talk about Tyler Atkinson.
Yeah, he played.
We will be eventually. God dang. I asked somebody the other day, I asked an SEC coach, I said, tell me right now, he's a linebacker coach at another SEC school. I said, tell me right now, if Tyler Atkinson reclassed from 26 to 25, would he still be the number 1 player in the country? And he looked at me and said, no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. That's how good that kid is. Tyler Atkinson just might be the best player I ever covered. Dead serious. Just might be the best high school player I've ever covered. He's a top 30 player in the state of Georgia right now as a 15-year-old freshman. You watch. It's going to be nuts this fall.
Yeah, and if you want more information like that real quick, make sure you go over to patreon.com. Shameless one-show plug. Patreon.com/Brookes Awesome. Go get nugs like that. We get them every day. You can also follow them on Twitter at Brookes Awesome BA. Brooks, thank you for joining us. Like you said, man, we got a lot to talk about. And I know Dan already talking about recruiting a little bit here, but Dan, I'm going to let you finish up your point, and then we'll get into
Listen, that's what we call a transition. I knew where we were headed, and I got Brooks started. I lathered him up a little bit with some kids.
Dude, I haven't been on camera in I don't know 3 weeks.
Hot minute.
You guys got first debut like 3 weeks.
Yeah. So I wish we could put video up on right now, because I have a video of Tyler knocking my son out in a football game. It's hilarious. He comes to the sideline. His helmet's turned sideways.
Tyler's the type of kid that make you want to quit when you're like 8, 9, 10.
So they gave up 1 touchdown all year, and my son is the one that threw it. And we scored the touchdown, and Cannon comes running to the sideline. Well, running is a figurative term. He comes stumbling over to the sideline with his helmet sideways. He's like, I can't see anything. I'm like, it's because your helmet is over your eyes. Anyway, so let's transition to recruiting. That's what everybody's here for.
We got legit. We got people calling us. We're saying we're baiting and switching. No, we were not. We had Brooks. We delivered, as Dan said in the comments. So let's get into it, Brooks and Dan. Obviously, it's been a heck of the last 7 days for the University of Georgia. Got in 4 commitments in a week. I don't remember a month like this.
Kicker?
Counting the kicker. Counting the kicker.
Right.
But to be fair, that kicker was called a 5-star specialist by some outlets.
Okay, he is not. I mean, he may be the best kicker in the country, but I've never seen a kicker get a 5-star rating.
So, how can you? So the 5-star system is built to implement. Like, if you're a 5-star, you are a first-round draft pick, right?
Right.
So, some bitch about to be Ray Guy. Is that what's about to happen? Isn't that the only kicker to ever go first round? Who was it? Somebody did.
Yeah, it was Ray Guy. Ray Guy, okay. I think he was like a top 5
I'm a football historian. I know a little bit of something, but yeah, like what are we doing putting 5 stars on kickers for? Just so we can say he's 5-star? What are we doing?
Wasn't Janikowski a first-round pick?
No, that sounds like some Oakland Raiders stuff. I think he was a high pick, but nonetheless, great kicker. But yeah, continue. A lot of momentum. I'm sorry to sidetrack you with the kicker talk.
No, it's all good, and I want to get into it real quick because without revealing some of the premium information you put on your Patreon, we wanted to get the lowdown on some of these guys, and I think you already spoke to him about him a little bit earlier. AJ Harris. I mean, from the public view, weeks leading into it, if you weren't subscribed to the Patreon, I think everyone had him going to Florida. Brookes, I mean, first off, what are your thoughts on AJ Harris as a prospect? And then can you give us anything without compromising the information you give on Patreon about, what Georgia had to do to get him back in the boat?
So it definitely was a Florida lead for a big minute. Now, there's this funny thing. Okay. A lot of these other programs, they don't necessarily use the media, but they allow the media close. Right, they allow them to recruiting camps. They allow them, on campus all summer. They allow them to get close to the prospects when they're there. They talk to coaches at a much higher rate than a place like Georgia or even Alabama, right? And so they help drive narratives. Same thing out at Texas. They're super friendly to the media, get them as close as possible because they help kind of drive what they need to drive. Same thing at Tennessee. Programs where, hey, we're on the come up, and you hear a bunch of great hype, right? It's like Jolly G. Willikers about every kid that comes into the place, right? Georgia, not so much. You're not really going to get a whole lot from them. So when you hear the news about AJ Harris kind of necessarily basically flipped from Florida to Georgia, a lot of Florida fans and a lot of the Florida narrative was, oh, that was a pass. They pushed him out, right? They didn't really want him. We're going after Kamari McMillan. That was kind of like the vibe. So I kind of bait and switched that to a couple of people today up in Athens. It was like, hey, what you think about this? And it was just like, hey, ha, fake news. No. We did what we needed to do to get after AJ Harris. And they have from kind of jump. Look, this is a Phoenix City kid, okay? I first saw AJ when he was, I think, a rising sophomore and working out at Oliver Davis. Drove all the way up from Columbus, basically, down there in Phoenix City, right across the border. Into basically Auburn territory in Alabama. Drove all the way up to North Cobb High School. And I just remember how clean he was then and how clean he's been since. Every time I see him, it's just polished from top to bottom. I think he's a very, very high ceiling football player. He's really, really put together. Not going to work on him a ton, but does he have the ceiling of like a Keely Ringo? I don't think so. But if you told me, hey, this guy's going to be like the 45th overall selection in 3 years, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, he's a legitimate 6 foot, going to play at about 200, maybe 205. He's a big, muscular mass kid. And he's probably going to run 4.51, 4.48. He's a really, really plus athlete at a 6 foot frame.
So, Brookes, I was going to ask you, we've got this momentum going, and I'm not going to ask you who's the next commit, but what is if you're Georgia, outside of Arch Manning, what is the one guy that's on their board right now that they don't want to miss on? I'm not going to say they have to have him, but what's the guy they don't want to miss on?
It's definitely Arch. Okay, so
outside of Arch,
outside of that, like I think you're so far invested into a player like Justice Haynes that if that doesn't happen, ooh man, okay, and I can tell you right now, he is numero uno. The same, not the same way that they're recruiting Arch, because they've been prone to take 2 in 1 class at the running back position. Never done it at the quarterback position under Smart in a serious sense. You know what I mean? Like 2 5-stars. It's never happened. Now they stack them up year after year. But the idea of Alabama signing Eli Holstein and Arch Manning, like they're floating that out. Or Eli Holstein and Dylan Lonergan, like that's a bit much. Georgia's never done that, but other programs have. Man, it's just, I don't know. I just totally lost my train of thought. refresh me here, guys.
Justice Haynes, you
yeah,
feel like
big time. You can't miss there, right? You backed it up a little bit with Richard Young, but there's just not a lot of depth. Ruben Owens, obviously at Louisville, there's not a ton of Justice Haynes caliber backs in this class, and you've invested a ton into him. My bad.
Well, and then you've also got
I got baby going down up there. I got you guys here. I'm sweating, you know what, in here because still got an AC problem, believe it or not. Excuses.
So before you get to the Ruben Owens thing, I was going to ask you, with Haynes being a legacy, obviously, and then him staying here close to home when these kids can go anywhere they want to, are you getting the sense that he's locked and loaded to stay here, or are you getting the sense that it's still an all-out battle?
So the funny thing, and you should know this, the interesting thing about Justice, and even I compare it very much to the Caleb Downs recruitment, these are 17, 18-year-old professionals. These are very, very polished individuals, okay? So I can text a certain 4 or 5 star from, let's say, North Carolina or South Carolina, okay? Let's say this individual might happen to play defensive line. Maybe they bursted onto the scene late. Maybe they're not from Metro Atlanta. Maybe they're not used to seeing 7, 8, 9, 10 media reporters at every high school football game they've played at since they were 14. Maybe they're not used to Kirby Smart just being always on the phone or always around, right? They're not used to these things. Maybe they didn't have a parent like Veron who played 9 years in the league. You follow me? And has also had an extremely successful career after football that is not talked about often, okay? So all of these things combine into a very tight-lipped recruitment, okay? So all you're ever really going to hear about Veron comes out of Georgia, comes out of Ohio State, comes out of, well, USC got cut out of it, but comes out of these places where they actually have a chance, right? They're actually lines of communication like Florida. Florida actually made a run late, believe it or not. But I do think there is a feeling and a sense that if Justice Haynes does not end up at Georgia, people will be floored. It will be a shocking moment, despite the fact that you're not going to get anything out of the kid. And that is not an exaggeration. You get nothing out of Justice. And that's by design. Again, he's very, very properly trained.
And real quick, speaking of a potentially shocking moment, Robert asked in the comments, on a rating of 1 to 10, how shocked were you speaking about Ruben Owens committing to Louisville?
So 12 months ago, that would have been a 9.8, right? But now it's like cut in half at least because of NIL. Like I'm not saying Louisville paid the kid, but let's be honest. That was so. Like I like, how does Nico, and Nico's a great player. I put my vote in the other day. I saw All-American for him to be our number 1 quarterback on the board. So we'll see if it ends up that way. But like, how does the article leak about Nico the moment he leaves Neyland Stadium and that deal is agreed upon verbally? The Athletic story came out a month, 5 or 6 weeks before he even committed to Tennessee. People knew exactly what was going down, and then he publicly committed. And now no one, basically it's confirmed. Everyone has been out here saying, and like on record, I've seen it in the Athletic, which is, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, king of the journos. They're not allowed to report anything unless they would go to the grave with it, right? So if everyone's out here publicly talking about it, when's the hit piece, or not hit piece, but when's the piece going to come out about this? Because if not, then holy smokes, Louisville just pulled a kid out of Texas? That don't make no sense. That don't make no sense. Again, I'm not saying, hey, but hey, if it's shit, if it smells like shit, there's probably something on the ground. Like it reeks of NIL money, which again, if my thing with the whole Jimbo Fisher and the whole NIL thing in general, if you are doing things above board, if you are doing this NIL stuff like you're supposed to, and like your state legally governs you and allows you to do, then why in the hell are you hiding? Why can we not talk about these things? Why can you not be proud about it? Why, if you're Louisville, Kentucky, you're a daggum Cardinals fan, you ain't had nothing but Lamar Jackson for your whole 20-year existence, bro, just come out here and say it. Like, yeah, we got this bag, dog. Louisville Slugger right down the road. We got this bag, dog.
Yeah, have you ever been to Louisville?
It's a whole bat company.
So no. Across the street from the campus.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
I didn't know this. Across the street from the campus,
Oh.
Churchill freaking Downs.
Yeah.
Across the street from the campus.
Money.
I was like,
Money.
holy shit.
Okay,
right
old
there.
money too, like big white hat money. Okay,
Yeah.
old money, like white pillars on the house money. I'm
They
talking
ain't
about
broke.
old money. Okay, they got it. And if you're if collectives are cool, then why y'all out here? Why y'all out here hiding, man? The Jimbo Fisher thing reeked. It reeks still to this day. If you are comfortable in what it is that you are doing, then bro, why are you out here barking like a guilty ass dog? I don't get that. It blows my mind. But Louisville's been very quiet about this. But the mentions ain't been. These people nowadays do not care. Go look on Ruben Owens' commitment announcement on Twitter. And like every fifth message is like, damn, how much that cost? Every fifth one. It's like people don't care. They know the deal. And everybody is so out in the open now that it's almost like nobody cared. And they never really did, except for when one or two teams did it, like in the SEC for a decade.
And going back to, NIL, we've talked about it at length of the show. We're on like a moratorium period with NIL. We won't discuss it as a segment for a little bit.
That sounds like a Dan Kiley rule if I've ever heard one.
That is.
We both mutually agreed on it. We had some monster segments on it, but it's the thing when you say above board. I was waiting on you for say like above board as an in-state, because that's what it is. It's I'm above board, but it's by my state law. It's not I'm above board in the NCAA. And that's where the big crux of the situation is. But going back to some Georgia-specific content, like I said, four commitments in the last week, which is ridiculous. Last June, Brookes, it was a totally different situation. I remember on NBR, you warned everybody. June's going to be crazy. It's the first time in 15 months that everyone's going to be on campus. There's going to be some decommits. There's going to be some commits. And it's not going to go all your way. But now, fast forward a year later, and it's going Georgia's way.
I think there comes a time, and I wrote about this today on Dawgs Daily. I think there comes a time in every single recruitment class under Kirby Smart where everybody looks up. And when I say everybody, I'm talking about all the top elite recruits, right? Because if you follow Georgia closely enough, we only write about 40 names for a reason, okay? We only cover 45, maybe 50 names a class, okay? And then at this point, right now, we're really only covering about 35 kids, okay? From top to bottom, across the board. If you really look at every credible site that knows how to cover recruiting. And the reason is because the board is dwindling. And if we know it, guess who else is getting told, right? Guess who else is being told, hey, guys, we're at 11 now. We're at 11 commits, okay? One of them a backer. We only got 2 more backer spots. By the way, we got one wide receiver spot, and we're only taking 4 of those, guys, okay? Hey, we're still, looking for a quarterback. All right, we're going to take one of those. Hey, we're going to take a running back, but we might have space for another one, right? Like these rumors, not these rumors, but this information is told to these kids. The one thing I will give Georgia credit about, like that I really, really respect them for, they recruit at an elite rate. We all know this. But what they don't do is lead kids on. They do not. If you are not on Georgia's board, it don't take damn long to find out that you're not. Kristen Miller is a prime example of this. Kristen Miller got a phone call from Travion Scott maybe like once every 15 days for the first 3 years of his high school career. And then his junior year, he goes out to every camp, and this junior summer goes out to every camp, and people are like, holy hell, look at this guy. Look what happened to his body over the last 12 months, okay? So Travion Scott went from talking to him once a week to talking to him about once every 36 hours. When you're on Georgia's board. You definitely do. And you also know when that board's getting tight. So I think we might be creeping up into that territory at certain positions where it's like, hey, get on the bus or you're going to have to run it down to find a spot. Okay. Positions like edge. They have Gabe Harris in the class, but you got Quay Rousseau on campus this past weekend. Samuel Mpepa on campus this past weekend. Guys like Tamarian Parker, who live about 3 hours from the University of Georgia, were on the board. They're not anymore. So they popped to Penn State today. Things like that. Spots are getting tight. That's why I think more than anything, because Georgia will swear they're not momentum recruiters, more than anything, they will tell you that this is, just because spaces are tight and kids are calling them, not the other way around.
So I had a question for you. I know you said spots are filling up. A guy like Joshua Miller, right, who I know very little about, was committed to Penn State. lost 30 pounds. Does Georgia get back in on a guy like that because they see the commitment, or was it they liked him all along? They just wanted to see. I mean, I don't know a lot about that guy, so fill me in on how that played out.
So he put a video out, and this is just me being a goof and a scout. He put a video out on Instagram of him working out since the weight loss. And I can watch that dude move in that one clip on my phone and know that's a guy. Like, that guy can play at the University of Georgia. I can just look at him and say he's 6'6", he's 315 pounds, and he moves like that. Period, point blank. Get him on campus, coach. That's what they say when they see stuff like this. Zacoby White just got it. We'll go back to him today. Just got an offer today. I put out a video of him on Twitter in April of him doing a round-off back handspring at a 7-on-7 camp. I had three coaches call and text me about it just because he did some athletic feat, right? Same thing with Joshua Miller. You see something like that, or you hear that his body has progressed from any local area scout or any local high school coach or anybody in the industry, and you say, all right, we'll get the kid on campus. Then you get the kid on campus and you work him out, and he actually looks like you think he should. Hey, I know first of all, you're a 3-star now. Come to Georgia. Watch what happens to that daggum rating. We got guys everywhere. Watch this. I mean, it's going to go through the roof. He's a 3-star now. I guarantee he'll be a top 300 player by the end of this, at least at the end of this. He will be a 4-star, I would imagine, by the time everything's done, because of everything he's done and the fact that people have noticed Georgia flipped him. That's exactly how that kind of stuff happens. We find out you've changed. We bring you in. We confirm it. Come on, Bubba.
And real quick, for the last Georgia commitment before we move to the much awaited Arch Manning part of this segment, CJ Allen. Brooks, I was texting with you last night. You know, Allen, 4-star linebacker out of Barnesville, Georgia, who you rank, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, you rank pretty highly on a linebacker big board.
Hold on. I'm going to cut you off. Joshua Miller just actually DM'd me, so that's kind of funny. Finish your question.
Joshua Miller just DM'd you.
Must be watching. He must be watching because he just jumped in the DMs just to say something. Go ahead. What was your question?
But with CJ Allen, you know, I was texting you last night talking about, you know, where this kid's ceiling's at, or what he's bringing to Georgia. I know you rate him pretty highly. I know
are you going to tell the people the name that you brought up?
That's up to you.
Hey, don't pussyfoot around it now, son.
My question was,
what name did you bring up?
It's the name that's always brought up with Georgia linebackers. I asked, you know, what's the ceiling like? Are we talking a Roquan Smith type linebacker?
Is the ceiling Roquan Smith?
Well, that's the comparison with every Georgia linebacker. So I was wondering if it's BS or is this a home run?
Hey, what do you think, Doc? You think he's going to be 6'10"? I know he just came out the womb, coach, but you think he's going to be like 6'9.5" and be a shooting guard?
Hey, his growth plates are open.
It's Roquan Smith, dog. Okay, but CJ Allen, no. Okay, here's the thing about CJ. Go watch the tape. Is like he looks like he is freaking flying everywhere he goes, right? He is an explosive firecracker everywhere he goes. The kind of track numbers are decent to above average for his size and his weight. He's a really, really, really good football player. Okay. But just because Quay Walker and Tresman, or, you know, and Channing Tindall and Nakobe Dean and all these guys exist, there's also, you know, Tresman Marshalls that take 3 years, Ryan Davis that takes 3 years. The real question people need to ask is, hey, where would you rank CJ Allen in that class of Smile Mondon, Jamon Dumas-Johnson, and Xavier Sword? Because guess what? For the next 2 years, that's who he's got to sit behind. So where does he rank in that class? I don't think he's quite there. Those guys were freaks, okay? Like real big freaks. Not 4.62 freaks. Like Smile Mondon was 4.48 ready to roll out of high school. Like 11.3 in the 110 hurdles. Super, super crazy, verifiable data type stuff. The same could be said about Jamon Dumas-Johnson's maturity on tape. CJ Allen's going to be great. Talk to me in 18 months when he gets in. That's kind of my vibe. Very much so like a Channing Tindall. Could he be a guy that is in year 2 flying around on third down going, my God, who is the lightning bolt on tape? Yes, 100%. But there is a lot to be learned as a football player. But the great thing is he's got time and he's got the right person, Glenn Schumann.
So listen, there's a million different kids that we can talk about. There's one person that everybody wants to know about. And if we're being completely honest, I don't know how much you can actually add because the kid doesn't talk to anybody. Like, I mean,
he's talking this week. He's got to talk.
Yeah.
He's going to the Manny Passing Academy, and they're going to stick about 900 cameras in his face, and he'll talk for about 55 minutes, and then you won't see him again. You won't see him again like a mythical creature until he burrows his head out of the hole like the groundhog on Groundhog's Day. But what do we want to know? What do we want to know about Arch?
So, we had somebody in the comments earlier, Geese88, saying that he's going to commit by the end of the week. We've got people talking about secret commitments, silent commitments, all this, all these comments, about Arch. But I hear all these quote unquote experts talking about Arch said this, Arch said that. Okay, well, where did he say that? Because the kid doesn't go to camps. He's not a camper. He's not around. His dad doesn't talk to anybody. No, like that family is so well versed at keeping this close to the vest that,
all right.
God, hand on the Bible. My father-in-law was next door neighbors with Arch Manning growing up.
Weirdest thing about this recruitment. I saw some of that stuff from one of my best friends in this industry the other day. Like basically wrote him off to Texas, like already, like ready to mop it up. And I've said from the jump, this is Kawhi Leonard to me. This is so Kawhi Leonard. If you follow basketball, and if at all, an ounce of basketball, tell me where Kawhi Leonard is right now. Nobody knows. That Shams Charania doesn't know where Kawhi Leonard is right now. Wojbomb doesn't know where Kawhi Leonard is right now. He's an enigma, okay? The same is to be said about Arch Manning. So what I do in situations like this, guys, I formulate very, very educated opinions. I talk to as many people on Georgia's side as I can. I try to verse the opinions from Texas. I try to voice the opinions from even places like Florida who thought they were about to sneak in late, thinking they were going to get him on campus in mid-June. Swear to God. Okay, that didn't end up happening for him. But every time I think about this, when it comes down to Georgia and Texas, think about what Texas has tried to do in this recruitment. Okay, the SEC had to hire David Cutcliffe to come work for the league office because Texas was about to throw the damn book at him, trying to give him every dollar they could to get him on campus. Okay, because David Cutcliffe was at Ole Miss with Eli and was at Tennessee with Peyton. Okay, very, very connected to the Manning family. To me, people see that and they're like, oh, genius, Sark. Great idea. No, to me, that reeks of desperation. That reeks of, hey, what can I do to get an advantage here? Because Lord knows I need one because I'm fitting to do what I know I'm about to do, which we'll get to in a second, which is a 5-7 season. Okay, then they host the Joker for an unofficial visit. They get Arch freaking Manning on an unofficial visit to Austin, Texas, to watch them get their doors blown off by Oklahoma State at home. Great impression there. 5-7, right? And then this past weekend, the Texas beat. I've never seen a Texas beat talk about a 3-star tight end commit like this in my life. If you haven't noticed, Texas has just taken the verbal commitment of some kid named Staples, and I don't mean to offend the kid, but he's Arch Manning's best friend. And he's Arch Manning's tight end, and he's Arch Manning's #1 target. Again, I cannot tell you how many times the ploy of, let's take his buddy, coach. Let's get him in here, despite the fact that we got 7 tight ends on roster, and despite the fact that the kid probably needs to go to Texas State to even get on the field. Let's get him in here, and let's get him committed on their official visit. And let's tell all the beat reporters that it means we got him locked up. Every step of this way, it seems like plants, like things that's like, hey, this will look good. The media will eat this up. The national reporters will eat this up. It'll get the narrative driven that he's coming to us. For what? Mannings don't do this stuff, man. Mannings don't need you to go out of your way to try to hire David Cutcliffe. Mannings don't need you to bring your high school tight end that's been your lifelong best friend onto the roster to appeal to you. For what? No, they don't need that. They need structure. They need guaranteed. They don't need, hey, we're going to stick all these firecrackers into a barrel and by God, it's going to blow up and it's going to look pretty or it's all going to set on fire. Like, it's not what Mannings do. Mannings go to stability. Mannings go to comfort. Mannings go to turnkey operations. They don't go to 5-7. What's it going to look like when Texas gets their doors blown off by Alabama? And it looks very, very clear that for 3 years when you're in college, you are not going to win out there at Texas. Or worse, what happens if Steve Sarkisian turns in a 4-8 season and there's rumors of him in the hot seat? Because guess what? That's happened. That has certainly happened. Look at the track record of Steve Sarkisian. So none of this, it all just does not smell like, yeah, a Manning does that. A Manning signs up for risk and flash, all for some good X's and O's. Like Todd Monken's not great. All that being said, he's probably going to end up at Texas. I don't freaking know.
Well,
don't know, but none of it makes sense for Texas. None of that none of those signs read stability, sign up for it. This is a good spot for my son to go to school. I wouldn't send my child there if I had the options that Arch Manning does.
So the only thing I will counter that with is when Eli went to Ole Miss, they were in a worse situation than Texas is right now. But there was a connection there that was undeniable. David was there. He was that was just going to happen. I really thought.
Forgive me. I wasn't of the age to even be covering it. But was Eli Manning the number one recruit ever?
Oh yeah,
he was
at the time. Okay. Eli was 100%. He was. He.
Yeah, they were probably comparing him with Jim Kelly or some freaking statue from the 90s.
They were comparing him to this guy named Peyton,
yeah.
who happened to be pretty good. No, but listen, with the Arch thing, it just drives me crazy. And the one thing I will give Georgia a lot of credit for is obviously they've rolled out the red carpet and they've done everything that they could possibly do to make the kid enjoy his time there. But you don't see Georgia on social media feeding a bunch of bull crap to people to put out there for them. Like you're talking about plant seeds, right? And you're way more connected to these people than I am. But in the channels that I look in, like I don't see the tomfoolery that you're seeing out of Texas by Georgia. Like they're like, hey, listen, this is our program. We're damn good and damn proud of it. Come be a part of it or don't.
So I don't read a bunch of other stuff, to be honest with you. But from what I kind of heard about the Texas beat this past weekend was that it was all the kind of the same information. It was all the same kind of like spoon-fed, oh, terrific. We went to a bowling alley and some Top Golf. And like they all got the same bits and pieces of information. And here's one thing I know about this beat. If you make it on this beat, son, you could get close and develop some relationships. If you are someone that can get close to actual information at the University of Georgia, man, you might need to be hired as a covert spy somewhere. I'm serious, man. Like these folks do not play. The University of Georgia and Kirby Smart do not play with the media. They don't like us. They don't want you close. They don't want you on campus during visits. They don't want you none of that, okay? And when Amarius Mims shows up at Florida State and gets out the car in a tank top and some daggum swim shorts and a pair of flip-flops, and there's 12 freaking Florida State guys going, hey, Amarius, can we get an interview with you, bud? He probably don't want to go, Like, he probably don't want to go. So one of the very first things that happened at the University of Georgia is, hey, during this summer, when they do all this magical recruiting, guess who ain't allowed on campus? Goofballs like me. We're not. Guess who doesn't get fed information? Not a lot over here. We got to earn it. It ain't getting fed. You got to go search for it. You got to go claw for it. Whereas at some of these other places that need the media, 5 and 7 at the University of Texas, $13 million contract, if I'm not mistaken, out there with Steve Sarkisian. Guess who needs good publicity? Guess who needs people and friends in the media? Probably those guys, right? Probably those guys. Same thing. I mean, it's clear as day, the programs that allow it and the programs that don't. Hey, it's pretty interesting. You'll see a lot more prospect photos inside the buildings at Clemson over the last couple of years because guess what? They ain't doing so hot, right? They just had a down year. So guess what happens? Access gets increased. So they get to buddy up next to Dabo. And then those beat reporters are a little bit less likely to go, damn, this quarterback hasn't progressed at all, right? That's how that works. That's how that works, okay?
I need friends.
I.e. friends, man. Like, you need friends when you need them. Kirby Smart don't need no damn friends right now. All he's got is dubs. Dubs left and right, just winning. That sucker winning.
One thing I would like your perspective on, because I've the kids that Georgia has recruited here recently seem to be taking on more of the attitude that the University of Georgia does. Like with Caleb, I've known that kid, maybe not but we're not best friends or anything like that, but I've known of that kid, been around that kid since he's about 10 or 11 years old. Okay. So you would think that I have an in there, but I don't. The only inside information I can give you on Caleb Downs is every so often he wears Georgia stuff to school. Sometimes going to practice, I'll catch him with Georgia flip-flops on. But the kid's not gonna. I can call him
Real
right
Loctite stuff right there.
Yeah, that's. But what I'm saying is, a kid like that, he doesn't give you anything. Like he can go for. It's amazing with a kid like that where he can go from I'm a 17-year-old kid having a conversation with a bunch of my buddies to, oh shit, I know whose dad that is, and I know that he does a podcast. I'm not saying nothing.
Again, super polished.
Yes, it's
Super
just the
polished.
same ways.
Dude,
Like,
but the crazy thing about Caleb is that I'm and you can tell me, Dan, I think of Caleb Downs as an introvert. When I see him, I don't see him being outgoing or outspoken unless he's around his teammates or unless he's in the middle of a football movement or action, right? Then he is vocal, then he is demonstrative if he needs to be, right? But every other aspect, he is very inward. He has been since he was 15 before all the offers. Man, that's what I'm telling you. If you do my job, it ain't hard. Go to 5-6 different places. You'll find these kids when they're 14 years old. Caleb Downs has been a guy since the moment that you laid eyes on him. It's been just like, this kid's a baller. In fact, it was stunning. It was so stunning that nobody saw it in his older brother, in Josh. It's like, how do you not watch that guy and go, this is something electric that we don't have on the roster? Everybody. And then he goes to UNC, and he'll probably be one of the top slot receivers drafted in the NFL, this coming up spring. But, man, super tied up, super tight recruitment that you're not getting close to. You're not getting anywhere into it. And honestly, I've spoken to all parties involved in that one. All parties involved in the Caleb Downs recruitment except for the Caleb Downs side of things. And guess what? Everybody throws their hands up. Everybody goes, we don't know. We don't know. I got probed more from coaches than I could probing them. What do you know?
I mean,
what do I know, Coach? I've called you.
he could end up at Notre Dame. He could end up at Carolina. He could end any one of them. And
I personally think it's Georgia and Ohio State, but that's just the vibe that I get from everybody but Caleb Downs' people and Caleb Downs. So what is that worth? A hill of beans.
Ohio State's the threat.
Yeah.
100%.
Real quick to, change pace real quick because it's been an hour. We've been on for an hour and 10 minutes, and I don't want to hold you up longer. I don't want to hold Dan up longer. Real quick, going back to the Arch conversation, the big thing coming from Texas fans is, when you compare the two resumes at quarterback between Kirby Smart and Sark. Granted, Kirby Smart has never been a quarterback coach. I mean, Brookes, what resume? I mean,
so who do we got? Right? What is the Steve Sarkisian tree? It's Lockhart from Washington. It's Matt Leinart from USC. It's all those Bama guys. I guess you can't even give him Bryce Young. The 2 starting years have been Bill O'Brien. He recruited him, but that's not his. Okay, so he's got Mac Jones. Okay, Mac Jones, I would argue, played above his head last year in New England. Is he super uber talented? No. But he also had like 3 freaks around him at the receiver position and the tight end position. Oh, and Najee Harris at running back. Oh, and Alex Leatherwood at left tackle, another first-round pick. So, what is the Steve Sarkisian quarterback tree? I understand, to me, the offense, no arguments here. I think it's fabulous. In fact, I would even give Matt Ryan's premier years. You have to talk about those when you talk about the quarterback development of what Sarkisian's offense can do. That matters to me. Okay, just the brief mix of him having success in the NFL matters as well. But yeah, he's a great coordinator. He is. But Todd Monken's been around, man. Todd Monken, you will not call a football coach in America. You will not. Offense, defense, special teams, NFL down to freaking JUCO. You will not call a coach that knows what they're talking about and say, hey, what you think about Todd Monken, and not get just a glaring review. Okay, and the Mannings think of him as such as well. So, Sark's great. But when we hear about this, but look at the quarterback pedigree. Okay. I mean, Davis Mullins, or, Chris Muller, or whatever the Mullins kid is from Southern Miss that threw for daggum 4,700 yards during Monken's years as a head coach up there, won 9 games as a starter with the San Francisco 49ers as a third-round draft pick out of Southern Miss. So that guy can freaking develop some quarterbacks too. So
Brandon Wheat was a first-round pick, from Monken.
Yeah, at 27 years old. I mean, with the retirement fund and everything. So, like, he has a pedigree of doing these things. So does Sark, but I think Sark's quarterback development is a little bit overblown. You know what I mean?
I was in Robert, the DGD podcast. He had a Twitter space the other day. We were talking about Sark, and this guy was on there trying to say that Sark gets credit for Carson Palmer. I'm like, bro, he was not at USC when Carson Palmer was there. I mean, that was like in what, like in the 90s? Like, come on, guy.
And he would have been like 27 years old and a GA.
Yeah, he would have been like 20. I mean, he's only in his 40s. You're talking about over 20 years ago. I mean, it's hey, listen.
Carson Palmer was on the cover of NCAA 2003, my guy.
It's just insane. Like, he
was the QB's coach from 01 to 03 in USC. That was his first position coaching job outside of El Camino College. So, yeah, if you want to give him some credit, and then he went to Oakland with there you go. He went to Oakland with Kiffin. So are we giving Steve Sarkisian quarterback credit for whatever it is that Kiffin was doing with that offense out of USC for 4 or 5 years?
I see, like you love.
Are we going to do that? Are we really doing that?
No.
Because if we are, give him Carson Palmer.
No, I'm not.
Give him Carson Palmer.
You love Sark for what? Like our Sark was at Alabama, you were a Sark stan.
Look,
right?
That's what I'm saying. Like, offensive design wise, I am a Sark apologist. Okay, big time. I will watch Sark's offense till the day that I die. As long as I'm studying football, we will watch Sark. Okay, as long as he's coaching offense. But all that being said, as much of a fan as I am of him, don't throw at me this massive amounts of quarterback development.
No,
the guy's been coaching quarterbacks for 21 years, and we're sitting here picking and choosing whether or not he gets credit for Carson freaking Palmer.
Right.
Like that ain't all that much. I mean, it's been great. The offensive run has been insane, and it will continue to be great. But hey, what happens this year if Texas is 7-6?
Well,
it's similar to what happened with Tom Herman and Quinn Ewers.
All right, hold on.
Back, 2 years ago.
Let me just interject this, okay? So we're worried about who quarterback coach is or whatever for Arch Manning, right? So that's the premise of this conversation. You name a quarterback coach in the country that's better than Tom House or what's the other guy on the West Coast? George.
Jordan Palmer?
No, George.
Whitfield?
Yeah. So Tom House and Whitfield are in Louisiana more times. I think it's like 6 or 7 times the last couple of months working with him one-on-one. Okay. So let me ask you a question. Is Sark or Monken, for that matter, a better quarterback coach than Tom House? No way in hell. No, he's not. And they're not better than George Whitfield. So the kid does, his freaking uncles are Peyton Manning and Eli Manning, Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Does he really need a bona fide quarterback coach in school? Hell no, he doesn't. He probably knows more. And I'm not saying he's more talented than the other guys, but in his mind, he probably knows more about the position than half of these guys. So I don't give a crap who the coach is. The kid wants to go where he has weapons. He wants to go to a place that's going to propel him to the number 1 pick. That's my take on the Arch Manning thing. I think he ends up at Georgia because I think he wants to freaking win. And I don't think who the coach is matters. That's just my take.
Yeah. Again, man, to me, like, there's just too many reaches. There's too many. Yeah, let's go hide David Cutcliffe. Yeah, let's go get his best friend committed. Yeah, let's throw an NIL bag at him late. Let's try. Let's leak some NIL stuff out there as well. Like, let's do all of these things. It's just, I don't know, man. This isn't the recruitment. Like, the other thing, I know Georgia offered some other quarterbacks, but they've been all in on this guy. And haven't budged. Literally haven't budged since probably last July. Okay? They've had some other guys on campus, but do you think this dude of all dudes really gives a flying hoot that Steve Sarkisian didn't offer a single quarterback this class other than Arch Manning? It sounds great, guys, when you say it. He didn't offer a single quarterback in the class of 2023 except for Arch Manning. That sounds great. Except for, hey, he took Miles Murphy last class, or not Miles Murphy. He took the Murphy kid out of California who's 6'6" or 6'5", 230 pounds. He transferred in Quinn Ewers as well. Okay. And he's got another quarterback battle right now on his hands currently. So, like, it ain't like the dude ain't been recruiting quarterbacks. Okay. And it ain't like the dude ain't going to continue to recruit quarterbacks either once he gets there. So I think some of that stuff's overblown. But it's a coin toss to me. And I would say it's like 55% in favor of Georgia, in my opinion, right now. But if you ask Texas beat reporters right now, I kid you not, I talked to multiple of them today. If you ask Texas beat reporters right now, they'll tell you they're 95% sure this dude's coming to Texas. And that reeks of plans.
If they were not to get Arch, real quick, before we can wrap it up, because Harrison wants to go to bed. It's past his bedtime. If they, for some reason, let's just say it's playing fairy tale world and they don't get Arch Manning, is there another quarterback they can get to salvage the quarterback, or have they already burned those bridges?
No, at this point, you're punting on this class.
Okay.
Unless he pops like next week.
Okay.
If he pops like next week, yeah, you've got some time. Okay. But like your backup plans were Dylan Lonergan. They were Chase Vizina. They were Marcel Reed. Well, Marcel Reed's going to Ole Miss. Okay. Chase Vizina's going to Clemson. And Dylan Lonergan's probably going to either Alabama or South Carolina.
Isn't Singleton in this class? Isn't that the guy you liked a lot? Or is that the previous class?
You talking about Malachi Nelson out there in California? No. Is in the state of Georgia in 2023. He's committed to Arkansas.
Correct. That's what I'm talking about. You liked him.
Not a Georgia target. Never really has been.
Okay.
Not really on the board at the quarterback position. In the class of 2023 has gotten some interest and gotten some plug, but a whole nother discussion.
But is that somebody that's
going to play well? What's up?
Is that somebody that they could make a run at if they were to fall flat on their feet?
I don't think they would. I just think they would punt on the class.
Okay.
They would just punt on the class, and they would say, all right, we're going to ride out Carson Beck for, in 23, unless something changes, unless something happens, unless Vandergrift beats him out, and you'll see what happens after that. I think personally, because I've seen the dude and I've talked to guys that I really, really trust at the quarterback evaluation business. I think Carson Beck has one and done written all over him. As soon as he gets 14 games, the NFL is going to drool. You watch. I mean, guys, that sucker is 6'4", 225 and throws missiles. Okay. Absolute rockets. I can tell you right now, there were multiple GMs that pulled him aside during the pro day because he threw for George. Okay. And ain't too many folks in this world flick it like that. All right. So I think you'll be fine at quarterback no matter what, even if you miss. And then in 2024, you're looking at guys like DJ Lagway. Zach Wilson's little brother can sling it, just picked up an O out there from Utah. So there's a whole list of guys in 24. Even Dylan Raiola, they'll go back after him as well, despite the fact that he's committed to Ohio State. So there's plenty of talent in every single quarterback class. It's why Kirby recruits it like he does, in my opinion. He knows he's got to crack at another great one next year. He absolutely knows it. This is not, the NBA draft where one LeBron James comes around every 15, 20 years. That's not the deal. These guys kind of siphon through every single year, and it's still a crapshoot. They've been all in, balls to the wall on Arch Manning. I personally think there's 3 or 4 quarterbacks in this class that may one day be better than him, and much better than him. There is a potential that's a possibility. So it's still a crapshoot, and there's great ones every year. So you take a great one every year if you can.
And with that is going to end a loaded Top Dog Talk episode number 46. Brookes, tell them where they can find you over on.
Not that we don't say it enough.
I was about to say, pretty sure they found you through my channels. Yeah, right there. You can find me
this guy. This freaking guy.
I mean, I can't see the numbers, gentlemen, but I guarantee you they bumped a little bit. I mean, come on, dog. No, you can check me out on Patreon, patreon.com/Brookes Awesome. You can hit me up on Twitter at Brookes Awesome BA. We'll see you guys. I appreciate y'all. Hey, y'all did a great job. Sorry, I was actually at the pool. That's on me. I totally forgot. I beefed it, man. I was at the pool with the little man. We were swimming. We were going down the slide. we're getting after it, having a good time, and then we get out of the pool, and yeah. So
hey, Brooks,
Those are
Rudes has a question that has to be
Lord.
answered before we get off. What are your thoughts about Harrison rocking a mustache?
I got a feeling that he'd have to paint it on. I just like me. There ain't no way that little baby face can grow no facial hair. He's just like me.
Hey, if I can get one like Spencer
shave like
Strider,
once a month, don't you?
what'd you say?
You shave like once a month, don't you?
Maybe
If that,
maybe once every 2-3 weeks.
yeah. See, there you go. Yeah, you growing no facial hair right there. Neither can I. It's just a little cat fuzz. That's about it. But hey, yeah. I mean, if we could, maybe some performance enhancers. Maybe get you a little.
Oh my God!
Maybe get you a little scruff in there. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I can see it. I mean, if Rudes knows dudes, if I know anything, Rudes knows dudes. So if he's telling you, go for it.
Well, the guys, thank you for joining us. That was Dan Kiley. You can go follow at Dan. Hold up. Let me put the banner up. Dan, where can they find you on Twitter?
At Dan Kiley 3. Nobody follows me, so it's okay.
You can go follow me at Harrison Reno on Twitter. Guys, we appreciate you. Next week, we'll have a live show next Friday, same place, same time. Got a little scheduling snafu that's going to prevent us from seeing you on Tuesday night. So see y'all next Friday. Brooks, thank you for joining us. Dan, see you next week.